You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in beautiful Northport, Florida. I've got a very special guest in the house, and he's on his way to get online right now. But I want to highlight a couple things. Price Boulevard now has 3 out of the 4 bridges open. They're working on the 4th over by the Walmart. So that should be opening up soon, I hope. That was the most destroyed out of the 4. But Price Boulevard is now open all the way to Toledo Blade from Salford now. And Monday's show, very, very important. Monday's show, I will have a representative from FEMA answering questions. Please, if you are watching right now and you have questions, please message me at 941-391-4663 or comment on the video now on Facebook, Real Talk 97.5 FM. I really want to help anybody that's out there. So if you can get that information out to people and let them know, we're going to have really solid resource on Monday at 3:05. Not only is she bringing a guest with her, they will be answering questions. So she's going to also bring a representative from SBA, and they will be answering questions on how you can utilize the SBA during the hurricane funding crisis that we have right now. There are a lot of people out there that are finding out that they had no flood insurance and that they had homeowners insurance. Those are 2 completely different policies. We did a show with Justin Box recently on that. But the biggest part that I can say is if you haven't talked to FEMA, if you haven't filed a claim yet, file the claim. That's the first thing. If you've got insurance, file your claim. Denial letters are going to happen. It's okay. You fight denial letters. I personally have gone to FEMA. I don't have damage, but I have taken a couple customers of mine to FEMA, walk them through the process. One of them is already getting checks. The others are in the process of getting checks. There is no way anyone should be talking to neighbors. Your situations are all different. I would never bank on everybody being in one funnel. Please, please, please go get direct information. And I know for a fact that FEMA already says expect denial. Document, take pictures. You've got to do everything. Pre-pictures, post-pictures, during pictures. I tell everybody to create a Bible. If you're having to redo your house one step at a time, create the steps that you're doing it with pictures. If you're going to do all these things and you're going to sell later, you're going to want to disclose everything. These homes are going to be looked at totally different from here forward because they were part of a flood process. So you really need to document all these things so that not only you feel better as the process goes on, but that the person that you possibly would be selling to later feels better about it also. I want to give some kudos out to road and drainage, public works, our water crew, anyone right now who has been facing the situation of not having had water, the electric side of things, but the flooding, the controls, the road, everything that they have done has been magnificent. As far as turnaround time, we're 30 days now, 31 days post event. things that are happening right now are unbelievable when it comes right down to it. But I think our public works department, I think the staff at City Hall, they've done everything they can. I've been out talking with customers and trying to, one, engage with them to find out what they need and what is going on to slow their processes down. I got to tell you, the more I listen, the more I hear that it's really just trying to find the one thing we've been short on for quite some time, which is workers. The remediation companies that are are here are already booked out. The ones that are coming from the Orlando and Jacksonville, different areas, they're already getting booked. If you haven't done that first step to get somebody out to start looking at remediation, you've got to do that. That is very important to get that process started. If you haven't contacted your insurance company, please do so, no matter how big or nor how small. Also, if you've done that and you haven't filed for FEMA, you need to do that also. Worst thing you're going to get from FEMA is a no. That's the worst. The best thing, a lot of people instantly are receiving $700 up front, and then they're receiving help post that. $700 goes towards a 2% deductible, which helps cover a lot of expense. Maybe you didn't have the funds to do that before, and $700 makes a difference. People that are battling the black mold that's growing in their home, that's also something that you really, really, really need to have checked out. And you also, if you have homeowners insurance and you don't have flood, go to FEMA. Make sure you're following every route possible. There are so many different funding groups out there right now trying to help people that are collecting money from people all over the world that can assist along the way. It is very important that you do file claim first off, file with FEMA second off, and try to find resources that can help you or your neighbors. And please, if you have neighbors that are elderly, that are struggling to make it, reach out to them, try to guide them. A lot of them are using electronic equipment now because of COVID, but they're getting groceries, but they're not doing the stuff we need to do when it comes to finding resources and also doing the application for FEMA. For a fact, like I said just a few minutes ago, when I walked in with a couple of my customers, the first thing that they spoke about was rejection letters. And if you get them, don't run around and tell everybody I've been rejected. You can fight that. You've got to stay active. The easiest thing to do is take a note. The best thing you can do is continue to walk the path and find different ways of wording things. If you have to write a different letter, different format, sit down with the FEMA adjusters. They're still available at STC, at Toledo, Blade, and Cranberry, at the Shannon Staub Library. I'm telling you right now, it is a huge resource center for what's going on. You can also vote when you're there. That is our voting center now. You can cancel both of those things out at one location. And I stress to you, please go to the source and get that information directly from FEMA. Monday's show, I will have a FEMA representative on. I've heard money restrictions. I've heard all kinds of things out there. I can tell you right now, I've heard all those things, and yet I know for a fact none of those things are applying to the people I've helped. They've all gotten money. They've all had different circumstances. We've met with each one of them separately at FEMA, and they're all getting some sort of help along the way. it's very important that you take advantage of having the resources face to face. I can't stress it enough. Uh, we were blessed. We didn't have the damage, but now that I've walked people through it, there's so much to learn. There's so much to learn. It's not funny. Please go out and just ask for help. I know for a fact the Chamber of Commerce, I'll go there real quick, but the Chamber of Commerce of Northport, and I'm sure surrounding areas, they were doing a magnificent job. RJ was filling out applications and answering questions. RJ Malloy is part of the radio station, and they had him in the Chamber of Commerce and working there tirelessly to make sure that people were getting the help that they needed. Don't throw your hands in the air. Just be a battler. This is the time to battle. If you don't have insurance, if you don't have flood insurance, especially, and your home was flooded, please stay on top of that and find someone who's going to give you the answers. Don't find a neighbor. Don't find somebody walking down the street who's bummed out that they didn't get any resource. Quite frankly, you don't know where they got their answers from. And if they didn't get it directly from a source, there's a problem. There's appeals letters that need to be filed if you get denied. There's public representation that's out there. I've spoken with the insurance companies. I did a show on it several weeks back with Justin Box at Allstate on Toledo Blade. You can ask your insurance agent and they will tell you the steps you have to follow. I highly suggest that one, you follow the processes of your insurance companies first and then work through the public adjusters that are out there. Exhaust all avenues first to try to prevent 10% loss up front. Letters of authorization. You need to be very careful on what you're signing. You can sign away your rights for insurance, and you will then be in less control than you have been from the start. So make sure that you are reading everything, asking questions. Don't just ask them if this is okay to sign, because they're going to tell you yes. I'm going to give a scenario that happened so that you understand what you're up against if you haven't heard this story before. One of my customers signed with what he thought was a roofing company. It was not a roofing company. It was a contractor riding around in a roofing truck, and he subbed out everything out through the sources. So his subcontractor was the roofing company that he was going to sub with, but who gets control of the insurance situation? Who gets control of the check, the funding that comes in to repair your home? It's the general contractor you gave all your rights to if you sign the wrong paperwork. I highly suggest that if somebody shows up at your doorstep, there's nothing like a 24-hour delay before you sign it. Nothing in the world. We take people shopping for a house. It's 30 days to close. It's 3 days to put your deposit in. I know that you can be in a panic situation. I'm going to promise you this. I don't care how fast you sign a letter right now. There's nothing happening the same day. They're not going to start on your house. It's locking down business for the future, and you need to make sure that you're protecting yourself. So if anyone presents you something to sign, you need to call your insurance company first and foremost, and it doesn't hurt to have them read it so that they can give you insight on what you're signing. And I will say this, Chuck English, 100% correct. Do your research before you sign. It is very, very, very important that everyone tells their neighbors to slow your roll. I'm telling you right now, there's not a roofing company out there that's going to put you on a schedule to have your roof done any faster than mid-November right now. So if there's a general contractor riding around trying to talk you into getting everything done and I can start right away, the same general contractor, when I flashed in my radio badge, ripped up the agreement for my customer along with the other 4 on his street. I wonder why. The one thing that I will say is it wasn't my realtor shirt. I didn't have it on. It was 100% the fact that I was representing the radio station and he didn't want to be talked about because the style of business that he was doing was shady. And his comment was, I'm going to work 3 more years in this area. And it's funny because he didn't know I was a realtor. And the one thing that he mentioned was how great his roofing company was. Never heard of them. Doesn't mean anything. Never heard of them. But he had worked in the Rotunda area for the last 4 years. And now he had 3 more because of all the contracts that he ran around and he got signed. And those contracts made him, after 72 hours, your spokesman for your repair. He was now your governing body. You are now, if you sign those documents, going to have to work through him at his pace. And the insurance company would then talk to him directly. And when you would call, you would be told, call your general contractor because that's who you signed with. So I'm going to throw this up. This is just, I'm so glad that you're participating. And if you have anything to say along the lines, please be like Chuck and type a comment. I'll do my best to read it out loud. Brief story. My elderly neighbor was talking to someone from out of state as it related to his roof. I wandered over and listened to the BS, I'm sure, as someone being told, being in the trade for over 2 decades, asked him if he was licensed in the city of Northport. He said yes, went to his truck to get the paperwork and show me and drove away. Amazing. I'm sure that if you ask people that 24/7, you'd find out that there are a lot of people that are out here right now driving around in their vehicles who are just collecting dollars and they love cash. If you got somebody that's saying, I'll do it for cash. Yeah, well, no warranty, no permit, nothing protection, and probably not done right. Couple things I'll tell you about roofing that you really need to pay attention to. Felt paper is not the way to go. Peel and stick is definitely the way to go. If you're gonna, if your roof is damaged right now, make sure whoever you're using is using peel and stick. That product is a secondary waterproofing for your roof. Therefore, if the shingles were to blow off in another storm, you've got that peel and stick layer there, and it's going to prevent the leakage into your home because the sticky side of that peel and stick product adheres to your decking on your roof, and then the shingle goes over top. 2 layers of waterproof protection on that roof. One, if the shingles get blown off. Quicker repair. That protection is there for the next storm that you may have. Please keep that in mind, that not all roofing companies are bad, but check your price points. Check what you're paying for. Make sure you've got a warranty. Make sure they're licensed and insured and bonded in our state. So I've got another comment coming from Chuck. And roofing over existing shingles is against city code. It's pretty much not just city code. It's pretty much statewide. Do not let anyone do a roof over. It is 100% not viable in our state. I've sold those and got them insured. Quite frankly, I don't know that you could do that anymore, because I think it was about 9 years ago the last time I did something like that. Insurance companies right now, for a fact, are changing what they're doing, because a lot of these roofing companies prior to this storm were actually climbing up on the roof and causing some delays. I'm going to bring Peter Bartolotta on, but I'm going to finish the story. Peter, are you there? Peter, are you there? So I've got Peter Bartolotta. I'm going to tell him to log back out and come back in. All right, so hold on one second. So I'm trying to call him now, but the roofing companies that were out there were doing damage to the roof when they would climb up to check to see what was going on. That by itself is causing a lot of these insurance companies to leave our state. So what you need to understand, if your roof is 16 to 20 years old and you have roof damage and they're climbing up on your roof because they want to check to see if you've had, not this storm, but prior to this, roof damage, and they're getting things covered. One second. Hey, Peter, how you doing?
Hey, good. I keep getting in and I get this unstable connection.
That's all right. I've got you on mic right now, so we're live on the air, but I'm going to finish my story real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've got, these companies, they climb up on your roof and they actually do damage to your shingle. Okay? They actually are doing that prior to this. Prior to all this, I had shows related to this. Here's what's happening, folks. Yes, you're going to get a new roof. Yes, they're going to battle for you. Yes, they're going to make your insurance company pay for it. Keep in mind, 6 of them prior to this storm were already gone out of our state because they were going bankrupt over this kind of fraudulent behavior, because they could not, because of the wording, they could not prevent it. They're working on the wording. That's a fact. But as homeowners, we need to be very, very scared. Because if you think that losing insurers is the way to go so that you can get a new roof, if you had damage from Irma or you didn't have damage from Irma, but now that your roof is 20 years old, you're claiming it, they're already talking about a 20-year shingle being insured for 10, and then escalating your cost over the next 4 to 5 years, which will be cheaper for you to replace it than it will to be able to pay the insurance company to insure it. That's number one. Number two, we're slated to lose another 6 insurers after this storm. Take those away from the pool. The fact that nobody's coming in I wonder if your insurance rates are going to go up because we had massive fraud being implemented prior to this storm. And now we have the storm that actually caused a lot of damage. These conversations, we've been having them on this show. We've been throwing this information out there, trying to wake people up. A 20-year roof, I know for a fact of one that was 18 years old. 18 years old. Didn't have any damage until they did it. And it's getting replaced. I didn't have pictures, didn't have proof, but it's 18 years old. It was a 20-year shingle. It's at the end of life. Fraudulent actions have caused 6 companies to leave our state prior to this. There will be more companies leaving our state. Fact. I'm a homeowner. You're a homeowner. A lot of people in the listening area, if you're renters and this behavior is happening, your rent is affected by it. Because once insurance goes up, what happens to your rent? It's not paid by the homeowner, and he just says, nah, we'll just let it go. Now he's passing that cost along to you too. So this actually has a real spiraling effect for the whole state of Florida. And it all started on the other coast. And we saw it. We tracked it over 2 years ago. We tracked it coming our way. We've been doing shows on it for 2 years. And they haven't been able to slow it down. But 6 companies are bankrupt because of the roofing that has to be replaced. That wasn't damaged prior to them climbing up. Peter, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, very good, John.
So
I'm late.
that's all.
It's got family over, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize what time it was.
That's all right. It's we all have that habit. Unfortunately, they get to hear me talk, and hopefully they can hear you all right. Chuck English, please text or post something there if you can hear Peter all right, because I'd like your feedback on that. But how are you doing through the storm?
I'm doing good. I mean, Eileen and I are blessed. We had minimal damage that I could say. It must have been a lot of debris. Had a minor roof. The ridge cap came undone, and my roofer is fixing that. And, it's just little stuff. We had to evacuate because she's got medical issues, and I needed power for, refrigeration of medical supplies and, and breathing equipment. And so we went away until the power came back on. We came back last Sunday. Wow.
So you were out of power for a while.
Yeah, we were out for like 9 days.
So, I told this story. I don't know if I told it on the air or not, but I was shocked because we had power where we're at within 12 hours.
Wow.
Well, that's a wow factor. But, anybody in the future that's trying to figure out where they should be in a city, I was blessed. Didn't have a clue until I found out from FPL. The FPL office and their station is right across the street.
Oh,
and when I talked to one of the FPL guys, I said, I can't believe I had power in 12 hours. That was amazing. He goes, well, we always get ours up first. We have to get ours first. He goes, you were just on the string that got up first.
Wow.
Well,
that's great.
Well, clue for anybody moving around in the city or elsewhere, make sure you're on the FPL line in the future because that'll aid in getting everything set up the right way and much quicker to have power because it was a blessing. I know that you live out by the freeway, and we talked earlier this week, but you weren't truly affected by any of the water runoff, so you were blessed there.
Well, we actually, the canal behind my house came to record heights. I mean, it was overflowing into the yard. And actually, when I left, an hour after I left, my neighbors told me you couldn't get back out onto Biscayne. It got so high. So I got out just in time. And, eventually it receded. And, but it was, we had a lot of water around us. Where my house is, that portion of the block fared well.
Well, and you've been in Northport for how long?
Oh gosh, do the math. 1992, I moved here.
So were you here for the record downpour in 1992?
Yes.
And would you say that this was worse than that?
I think so. You couple the water, which was massive, with the wind, which was, scary as hell. I mean, that wind blew from the north, from where I live. It was just a constant north wind, which means we were in the eye wall for 7 to 10 hours. It was like crazy. And then the water on top of it, I think this was definitely worse. That one was a rainstorm. This was rain and Cat 4 hurricane.
Well, and I'm going to throw this up on the screen and I'll read it to you because it was something I was going to talk about anyway. But I actually think that Chuck is kind of hitting this preemptively ahead of time. I want to see how the hospital is going to get built because he says, love you guys. Think about the area the new hospital is supposed to go. That was totally flooded at the intersection of 75 and Sumter. I cannot imagine after this that they're not going to raise that hospital and build it totally different than what they had in their mind before this.
Sure.
So
well, we've got to think of that's throughout the whole city. I think this was an eye opener. We knew it. But Florida is built on swamps. It's all a network of canals and the water management. And could we do a better job? The answer to that is always yes. And I just think hopefully it'll wake people up to the issue that we have and start coming up with some solutions.
Well, and we when we have new houses built here, we go above street level. I have a feeling that even that now is going to be looked at totally different for anybody who's building now. But you also have to keep in mind that you can't watershed onto somebody else's property. So if you don't string them together appropriately and drain them off the right way, you could be causing flooding to your neighbor at the same time. So you can't over elevate. At the same time, I got to believe that people are going to start talking with their insurance agent. We had that show. The typical flood policy prior to this event would have run about $300 to $400 annually for about $175,000 worth of coverage if you were not in a flood zone. I can promise you, if I went back and I talked to all those people today, that they would absolutely love to have had that policy now.
Sure.
Because homeowners insurance and flood insurance is two totally different things. They do not work hand in glove. They work separately from each other, and they like to tell each other they don't work together. There's also something that is in the verbiage of an insurance policy that people need to make sure that they have coverage for, and that's wind driven rain. If your insurance policy does not talk about wind driven rain, think about the and I'm going to call BS on their Cat 4 numbers, because federal dollars are being withheld because it's not a Cat 5, and that's the truth. There would be more federal dollars, and that would all be adjusted differently if the federal government gave that 2 more miles an hour. So they're saving billions of dollars right now in their aid, because they're not being factual. That is what we're finding out as we continue to listen. But the wind-driven rain, if it's not on your policy and you don't have that coverage, you may not be covered from this storm. So these are all things that, in the grand scheme of things, everybody wants the cheapest insurance policy. Cheap, 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 cheap. It's all good. I'd rather have coverage than a cheap policy that doesn't cover me at all. So I think we've learned not only the level of where we're going to build, but I think a lot of people are starting to look at, oh crap, if this happens again, I don't have an extra $50,000 laying around to redo my house.
Well, yeah, but I really think we got to look at a couple of things. I'm a fan of Babcock Ranch.
Yep.
They came out of it unscathed. They from the day they started building that was built with hurricane standards in mind. So and it worked. They didn't lose power. They didn't lose internet. They had communication the whole time. Why? Because it was planned for. We've got to start doing that. The second thing we got to do is minimize the risk. And, with the risk is being spread across all parties.
Absolutely.
Right? So if there's a house that's not up to code, that house has got to come up to code, or they should be charged a higher rate. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and there are a lot of situations with that right now, as far as code goes, to bring those standards up, and it's even goes into the insurance side of things. I'm not saying to bring the code up. I'm saying that we have code, and when you look at the storm and the damage that occurred, the code works. The homes were not. The homes that were up to code fared pretty well. I'm saying if there's buildings that are not up to code, somebody's got to take be strong and stand up and say, look, you've got to get up to code, or your insurance rates are going to be tripled and quadrupled. Well,
if we don't,
go ahead.
If you don't do that, John, all the insurance companies are going to do is spread that risk on the rest of us.
Well,
so everybody's rates are going to go up.
We've done this now with the insurance game for the past 4 or 5 years. We actually were doing discounted if you were elevated. Okay. So if you were in a flood 8 feet and you elevated your pad up to 13, then you were required to have flood insurance because you were in a flood zone, but your elevation brought you out of flood at 13 feet. Well, the problem we have with this storm, we got more water than 13 feet in a lot of areas that people weren't ready for, because our canals couldn't hold the amount of water that was being shed, not just in Northport, but north of us. So I agree with what you're saying. I think things have to, and we can talk about this until we're blue in the face, but until we get some leadership to look at elevations and costs and different things like that, again we go right back to it, because Jim Bateman, I was reading the comments, and he said, when I've been preparing pads for buildings for people, I've been elevating to prepare for sea level rise. So, and I'm going to ask Jim, maybe he's writing something now, but yeah, he did a customer's house out in the estates. That area used to flood all the time, and I know you remember that. And it always got water, but it used to flood really bad back in the day.
It flooded this time.
Yes, it did flood this time, but the pad that he had put down for his customer to build on did not flood. What was the elevation, Jim? If you can text me the elevation of that pad that you put out in the estates, if you know that elevation, tell me what that elevation was. I'm curious to know that if there was an elevation done on that property, what exactly level he had to build that pad up to, because that truly is kind of a swampy area out there to begin with, and it was always known to be the flood area of our city. And you've been here long enough, Peter. You can kind of testify to that.
Yeah, but John, the issue is not just the elevation above, raising the elevation. It's got to do with how are we managing the water flow, and that's government. They're the ones that have to manage it citywide. Look at developers. When they develop property, they manage the water flow. They take it into account, and they build accordingly. So they're moving that water to different places. We've got to take a hard look at that, and everybody's got to play the game. And the ones that don't play the game have to pay a price.
Yeah,
because if they don't pay it, they're going to pass the cost on to the rest of us.
I know that they're rebuilding, and I want to be careful because we didn't lose structure. We're rebuilding around the structures. But what I know for a fact is, even like the structure behind Winn-Dixie now, they're building a wall underneath the pavement that they have to replace because of the washout. Right. Sure. But those structures were doing their job. They were open 100%.
Yes, they did.
And I know that they dropped the level of like Blue Ridge. They dropped that 14 inches prior to the storm. They couldn't drop it anymore because of fish kill fine from the federal government. That was the reason that they couldn't go any lower than what they did. But think about that. 14 inches in that lake, that was a drop in the bucket compared to what we got.
Think of this, John. I don't think West Villages got hit bad with flooding. Am I correct?
They did not.
Okay. Why?
Well, their elevation is not higher. But
no. They're a planned community.
Yeah, they are.
Water flow was taken into account when they developed it and when they built it.
Right.
The rest of Northport is platted lots.
Correct.
Each lot is totally different. One builder comes in and he builds it to this height, another builds it at another height. I think that we need to look at what can we do with the water flow throughout the entire city. And how do you divert the water? Now, I have a canal behind me. I call it a canal. It's a drainage ditch, but it's constantly got water in it. So it must be a major drainage for the city. And I'll tell you, that water was moving fast and it got high, but it did its job. So I think we've got to look at this storm and say there's two elements to it. One is the water. And we picked up all the water that flowed down from Manatee County and Arcadia and whatever. We picked it all up, and it didn't have anywhere to go when it got here. So we're going to need some state or federal assistance to figure out how do we get this water back out to where it's got to go. And then the second thing is the structures need to be up to code for Cat 5 storms. And there's no easy way to do it. You got to bite the bullet. It's like Price Boulevard. We can talk about it till the cows come home. But if we don't do anything about it, guess what's going to happen?
Same thing.
Same thing. And
wow.
I'm tired of this. We do this all the time. We talk about it and we don't get the action. We don't get somebody sitting down and saying, we are going to put a plan together. We are going to put a focus on one part of it, which is the water. Second, the wind damage is the easy part. To get homes up to code is it's a mandate. It's like the septic tanks. If your septic tank isn't inspected, you should be fined because you're polluting the ground. You're affecting all of us.
Right.
It's the cost of home ownership. And when your system needs to be replaced, because it will at some point, then you got a choice: spend $15,000 and have a new septic system put in, or hook up to the city for $10,000.
Right.
And that's what. So, but these are hard choices. People don't want to talk about that because it's cost. How do you fund this stuff?
Well,
so, but we got to look at it in its entirety and look at it from both sides.
Well, and I'm not going to disagree with you. And I'm wondering at this point, and I haven't confirmed this because it's hard to have asked them these questions moving through the process. I know the next time I have Public Works on, the one thing I want to have them discuss is what are they going to do to analyze this to move water differently than they have in the past. Because after this, they have got to look at things totally different than they did prior to this.
Well, and I'll throw a monkey wrench in the whole thing. You know how I feel about the Orange Hammer property, 5,600 acres, and everybody in the environmental side preached about this is important to us for water. Well, yeah, you've got a basin there that just collects the water, and it's preserved land, so you can't do anything to it. But that water flowed right into that area.
Yep.
And, so I'm all for the environment. I'm all for all of that, but we still have to live here. And somebody's got to take the bull by the horns and come up with a plan and then execute. This is not rocket science. How come West Villages didn't flood? Let's count the ways. They planned for it. Why didn't the homes get destroyed? They're up to Cat 5 standards. Gee whiz. What if we did that in the whole city? And stop with the political feedback. And, people may not like it, but you got to do it. Either that or go to Plan B. If your house is not up to Code 5, you get rated differently than I do. I spent the money to get my house up to Code 5. I spent money on a new roof. I spent money on shutters. Okay? So I'm protecting the insurance company's money, aren't I?
Well, there are discounts. That I will tell you that everything that you just named are discounts that the insurance gives because you went over and beyond.
Yes, because the odds are less that I'm going to have damage.
Absolutely.
So they lower the risk. But what they don't do is the homes that are that are older homes that aren't up to code. They've got to insure these people. You've got to make sure insurance available to them, and they spread the risk to the rest of us. That's not fair. It's time everybody starts getting, paying their own fair share.
Well, I will tell you, I've sold a lot of older homes in the city, and the one factor that we have, even prior to this storm, it's going to get worse now, but prior to this storm, to actually sell someone anything 1990 and older, the numbers are off the charts, to insure it, off the charts. I mean, you're $2,500 to $3,500, and that's not flood. That's just homeowners for a lot of these older homes, and that is because of exactly what you just said, of how they're built.
And people need to understand that. And realtors like you, John, and I know you do a good job educating people, but they've got to be educated that you can buy an older home, but you're going to pay $4,000 or $5,000 a year in insurance.
Well, and that would be my tip to anybody who's looking to buy is you never buy a piece of property and you never make an offer on a piece of property until you pull an insurance quote,
sure,
prior to your offer. Because any agent that is worth their dollar is going to do that for you. That's just,
you're right.
And
John is one of the best realtors out there, folks. So he knows what he's talking about.
Well, I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Let me come back to what you were talking about before I got on with these scammers that are going around and telling people to get a blue, to put the blue top on their roof, and they don't realize there's glue underneath that top, that if you put it on, you destroy your roof. That's a temporary fix, and then you're going to have to get a new roof. And these scammers should be put in jail. I don't want them fined. I want scammers to know, you come to Northport and you scam, say goodbye to your family and friends for 10 years.
Well, I wish we had something like that. I know they don't, but I wish we did.
We need to start putting teeth into some of this stuff. And we got to start getting people, the government to protecting us, and by not doing this, we're paying the price. And the insurance rates are going to keep going up. And when you do have damage, you're going to fight harder and harder to get the insurance companies to respond.
Well, I tell you what, I started this show without you, right?
Yeah.
And I just looked down at the clock, and it is 3:56.
I know, it goes fast.
And I'm like, holy cow, what happened? I literally started talking and then got you on the phone. We had planned on having you on air, and I'm very appreciative of everyone who is out there listening right now. But I want to remind everybody, if you're new to the listening audience right now, on Monday, please watch on Monday. Tell everyone out there on Monday, FEMA. I'm going to have a FEMA representative doing Q&As. I'm going to have SBA with her on this show for a solid hour answering questions. As you know me in the past, if things get wound up, I'm going to get off the air, but I'm going to stay live on Real Talk 97.5 on Facebook, and you're going to be able to learn more, ask questions, do all the things that Chuck and Jim Bateman and Peter does when he's at home. He'll log in and ask questions. And please tell everybody about it. I'm going to ask questions about FEMA that you may need answers to. And if I don't ask that question and you type them in, I'm absolutely going to pull them up. I want to help. I want to get this information out to you guys. If you need to sit down and discuss anything, go to FEMA directly. Go to the Shannon Staub Library at STC at Cranberry and Toledo Blade. I promise you, if you go there, the other day, back-to-back customers, I walked in the door. Got good help, got great information. Wasn't there 20 minutes total, including sign in, wait, talk, and out the door. That's a fact. Less than a half hour, you can find out what's going on and what you have to do directly from them. That, to me, is everything you need to know to go at least find out what's happening. If you have homeowners insurance or not, if you have flood insurance or not, and you were affected, get started with FEMA. Worst thing they can say is no, and then you appeal it. That's the facts. Guys, it's 3:59. Peter, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. I do. We'll get you back on again. Tell your wife I said hello, and I hope she's feeling well.
Thank you.
Did you guys have a great night? Have a great weekend. I got to say this, go Buckeyes. We're playing Penn State. So, I love Big Ten, but there's some great college football out there. You guys have a great weekend. If you're if you're into Buckeye football, show up at Twisted Fork tomorrow at 11. Get your seats and watch the Buckeyes kick some Penn State butt. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good weekend.
Stay safe. Say hi to Carrie.
I certainly will. You guys have a blessed night.